Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of the Jets Life podcast. We're heading into Dallas. Today's Friday, September 15th. Well, a few months behind. September 15th, and we're heading into Dallas for a 4 o'clock game against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Zach Wilson's getting his first start of the season. I know he played most of the last game and was, able to kind of lure us into a victory against the Buffalo Bills and that top five defense. But a huge test coming up here with Dallas, who, as we all know, defeated the Giants last week on Sunday Night Football by a score of 40-0 at MetLife for the first of the two games in Week One at MetLife. Dallas came in with all the firepower in the world on defense. They were fast, they were quick, they were able to get around the edge, they were able to apply a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones that game. And I assume with Zach Wilson getting the start in this game, that'll be a similar game plan that we would expect going into this game, which leads me to a few of our key matchups heading into this game. I guess we start there on the offense side of the ball. The Cowboys D line. I'm gonna throw Micah Parsons on here as well. I know he's listed as linebacker, but he's best when he's got his hand in dirt and when he's applying pressure um, as a pass rusher versus this Jets O line. Um, big. I know last week Buffalo came in with their pass rusher. They were missing Von Miller in that game, so a little bit of tone down from what they can produce from a pass rushing standpoint. But the Cowboys' defensive line comes with many players that can definitely apply pressure. Dexter Lawrence is a player who's really kind of flies under the radar a lot as a premier player. Like he's not spoken nearly high enough for what he's capable of as a pass rusher, but I feel like every week he comes in and he produces just to an above average level for sure. So the Jets are gonna have their hands full, especially from the offense tackles perspective. It's gonna be difficult for Mekhi Becton and Dwayne Brown, who still seem to be kind of getting themselves under, kind of getting themselves under control for what they can produce as a pass rushing unit. We all know the pressure that unfortunately sidelined Aaron Rodgers for the rest of the season. The pressure came from Dwayne Brown's side. That was, a situation where Dwayne Brown did his assignment. Was supposed to be a little cut block, and then Aaron Rodgers was supposed to get the ball out of his hands. But nonetheless, that's definitely got to be weighing on him, and you wonder what to expect from him with, you know, potentially Micah Parsons coming from that side. So it's going to be a tough task there for sure. But for really, not just there. It's even in the interior. Hankins for the Cowboys is basically a penetrating defensive lineman. Does fantastic in the running game. So Jets are going to have their hands full for sure. This offensive line is still one that's got to kind of reach an upper tier a little bit here, especially with Aaron Rodgers out. The intention was with this offensive line not getting enough time to gel together, that Aaron Rodgers with his quick decision making would alleviate some of that stress on the offensive line because he would be getting the ball out of his hands in 2.5 seconds. Was kind of the intention. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, including on the play he got injured. Zach Wilson has historically had an issue with getting the ball out of his hands, but we saw in the preseason that was something that obviously this coaching staff took an emphasis on, is him getting the ball out of his hands, and he did a pretty good job of that in the preseason. Now against Buffalo, although he did play, okay in that game, just one turnover and was able to be efficient enough for the rest of the game to get us into a situation where we could win the game in overtime. Um, it this Cowboys defense is gonna know the recipe. You gotta stop the run. Brees Hall was fantastic last week, and they are gonna make that an emphasis. We saw what happened when the Jets got into situations where it was third and long, or third downs in general, in that game where we weren't really able to get it, past the first down marker until the fourth quarter came around. So I think we all understand the recipe with Zach is, we have to stay ahead of the sticks, and Cowboys understand that as well. They need to put Zach Wilson in as much pressure situations as possible in order to allow for this defense to do what it does best with the secondary and these pass rushers kind of working hand in hand, applying pressure and potentially getting turnover. But with Zach in mind, we all need to understand that this is a player who has low confidence and some familiarity with this offense, having gone through it throughout training camp. We still need to understand that you know he's still developing. When pressure comes up, and in the Buffalo game, he did that thing where he backs up 30 yards and tries to throw it somewhere in the field. And in that play, there was a Buffalo player there, and unfortunate for us, it did hit the ground. No turnover there, or else that would have been pretty bad situation that we would have to deal with. Can't put us in those situations. He's got to play game manager as good as he possibly can, while also being aggressive and taking some shots down the field, getting some chunk plays. His average per pass in that last game was around 6.7. You'd like to see it kind of go up a little bit. Have his coaching staff have a little bit more trust in him, because really cannot go through a season like this where you're not trusting your quarterback enough to make those plays downfield. Something's gotta give here. We gotta kinda take a step forward with Zach, and how is it gonna be done? It's gonna be a gradual thing. He at least was able to make the easy things look a little easy. We saw a lot of passes last year to screen passes, the short passing game, those balls just, going over the receiver's head or skipping it into the dirt. Didn't really see that happening too much in this or really at all. Maybe there was a play here or there, but I don't really think I saw that too much out of him. Really, the biggest thing that we saw is that the pressure would come, and he would just kind of either get rid of the ball, which is what we really need to see out of him. And can he continue to do that against the defensive line of the Cowboys that gave Daniel Jones fits last week? And sticking with that, if the pressure does get home, this Cowboys secondary is something to really worry about. You got Trayvon Diggs, who for whatever reason, he gets a bad rap. I mean, I know he's not Sauce Gardner, for example. He's not gonna limit teams to very minimal yards, to the extent that Sauce Gardner can. But when a play needs to be made, it seems like this guy does it pretty routinely. Malik Hooker in the secondary, someone to worry about. I believe he had an interception of Daniel Jones last week. This Cowboys secondary is very opportunistic. They will make quarterback pay if this pass rush gets home and the quarterback tries to force something in there. So something to really kind of keep an eye on here is these Cowboys DBs versus the Jets wide receivers and tight ends. I mentioned obviously Trayvon. They have Stephon Gilmore, who isn't what he used to be, but he's veteran enough. He's seen a lot, and with this Jets group of wide receivers outside of Garrett Wilson, it's basically like two Bs, um, and a bunch of three receivers. McCole Hardman did not get nearly as any snaps at all in the first game with the Jets. You wonder what happens there, because the Jets need somebody to make a play. I know a lot of it falls on Zach to make the plays and to be smart with the football, but somebody's got to make a big play. If teams just know that they got to cover Garrett Wilson, they're going to do that all day long and try and get Zach or another one of these receivers or tight ends to beat them. Obviously, not counting Brees Hall in the running game and sticking to the wide receivers particularly. Something's got to happen here. These Jets, skill players have to kind of make life a little bit easier for Zach, and then the coaching staff has to, give him throws he can stay confident with, to get this team ahead of the sticks as much as possible. Because the worst thing that can really happen is if this is a game where we find ourselves in a lot of third and longs. This is not going to be a game where we can succeed in, if that's at all the situation there. So obviously, I start with the offense versus the Cowboys defense. There's going to be a lot of skepticism, a lot of curiosity, a lot of frustration based on what happens there. So obviously, my tone when talking about the offense and what their ability would be against Cowboys defense, which was the only team to shut out anybody last week, is going to be a little skeptical for sure. So I'm going to go over to the defense side of the ball where there will be a little bit more optimism. Um, then obviously talking about the offense, and I'll start with our top unit, the Jets cornerbacks versus the Cowboys wide receivers. Um, this is going to be a big test for the Jets corners. I mean, we know what Stephon Diggs is in week one. We knew Gabriel Davis what he can be. But the Cowboys come in with three receivers that they can line up out there that are pretty talented. We have Michael Gallup, obviously. He's not what he used to be after his injury, but still a receiver that has 1,000-yard season under his belt. CeeDee Lamb is one of the top 5, top 10 receivers in this league. Um, you know, and then obviously Brandon Cooks, who's basically been a 1,000-yard receiver everywhere he's been. And I would expect him to kind of continue that with the Cowboys with Dak throwing in the football. Um, you know, Jets come in with obviously Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Michael Carter. So this will be literally a situation where on any given down, all three of these corners are going to be tested against a receiver of average to above average, and in some cases elite talent. It, I think we got a little glimpse of Sauce Gardner last week against Stephon Diggs, and even DJ Reed against Stephon Diggs, where Stephon Diggs is just the you know, top tier talent, top tier against the combination of Sauce, Reed, and in some cases Michael Carter. But what this defense will do, they will they will play technically sound. Players are going to catch a ball. It's going to happen. And in the Buffalo Bills case, a lot of those passes went to Stephon Diggs. Just did a good job elsewhere. They were able to shut everyone else down. That's what you would expect. This defense did their job. Held overall the Bills to just over 300 yards as an offense, which overall I think is a top three um, a stat for the last 19 appearances that the Bills have played in. So definitely strong effort there overall from the defense. But yeah, this is gonna be a big test. But the biggest thing I want to see is these Jets cornerbacks taking advantage of plays. I know we had 3 interceptions last week, all by Jordan Whitehead. You'd like to see these corners play a little bit more aggressive, try and make a play, especially against Dak Prescott. I know you played turnover free last week, but last year, it's been well documented. He threw a lot of interceptions last year, and if the Jets are really going to want to take a victory, especially on the road against this Dallas team, turnovers are going to have to come again. This defense, again, I go back to DJ Reed's comments earlier, you know, last week or whenever it was that he referenced the 85 Bears. This defense, you know, after Aaron Rodgers' injury, what it's going to take for them to go through the season and be great is to be an elite defense. We already know that they're top 5 capable. That's been well documented. They were there last year, and last week was a sign that they're continuing to progress in that direction. So the turnovers have to continue to come, especially if this offense has as much struggles as they did moving the football as they did last week. Um, turnovers have to come, and in pressure situations. I know not going to obviously shot where the interceptions came from, but all those interceptions that we had were on our side of the field, so it didn't really put us in favorable positions as far as being able to kind of capitalize on them because one was an interception basically inside the 5 more or less. I think we were able to get points on that because of a big Brees Hall run. We were able to get points on that drive. Another interception basically was a touchback. I think was intercepted in the end zone. And then the third, I want to say it came inside the 30-yard line, our 30-yard line. So just would like to see like this defense applying a little bit of pressure when the team is backed up. I do understand from a coaching standpoint, complementary football. If your offense is struggling, you really don't have that luxury of being aggressive, having your defense pin the ears back. So just you know, our DBs are great, and I don't expect Cowboys to go crazy from an offensive standpoint, at least from a passing game perspective. But what can really turn the season even further in the right direction would be a showing by this defense, getting turnovers, putting offense in manageable positions, and then if Zach Wilson has that ability to kind of work with the way this defense is playing and be more aggressive, this can only build his confidence up. So I think this is going to be a big test test, obviously, with how well the Cowboys wide receivers are. But again, we didn't really see much out of them last week. I expect the Jets to really try and stop the run game, and I think they understand the way you're going to win this game by forcing as much turnovers as possible. So they're going to try and do what they can to try and get get Dak in those unfavorable positions. It's obviously we know what Dak is, we know where Zach is. Um, Dak obviously has great seasons under his belt. So I wouldn't necessarily say the Jets have any sort of way of kind of comparing to what the Cowboys have at quarterback. But with how good this defense is, it really levels down that other team's quarterback to the point where if Zach can just elevate his game a little bit, we always talk about it. If he was just average last year, or even below average, just not terrible, we would have been a playoff team. We would have been a hard out for any team. He's beaten teams throughout last season. Robert Saleh mentioned it, 5-1 as a starter before the bye week last year. The only loss to the Patriots in that game that you know the interception was called back, and there was a few other calls during that game that we don't really have to get into. That's all history. But this guy has played games where he's been able to manage and didn't screw up. The Jets are just asking him to continue that progression. Matchup possible for Zach the following week playing the Patriots again. That's always been a nightmare for him. Going back to his first terrible start with the Jets against the Patriots. I think it was week 2 of his rookie year. So you just really, kind of need to take that step. These corners is I'll throw the DBs in there. Jordan Whitehead, I mean, got to throw him in there. Tony Adams played. You didn't hear his name, which is always a good thing when talking about DBs. Um, so big test here. And just going with the pass catchers, I just want to call something out. Jake Ferguson, Cowboys second year tight end, I believe. I think he came out last year. Um, Actually, yeah, because I remember kind of looking at him in the year we drafted Ruckert as a possible option. But anyway, Ferguson had a few drops in that game, targeted a lot of times. Um, he didn't put together a strong statistical effort, but if a few of those passes are caught, he's someone to watch out for. He seems like someone that the Cowboys are definitely having their game plan. Not sure how the drops are. I'm not too familiar with how he did last year, but I wonder if this drop thing is a kind of a consistent issue, or if it's something that he just had a bad week with, and if he can further progress that. But definitely watch out for him. I would assume these safeties kind of keep an eye on him if they're watching the film because he got open a few times, just did not corral the passes in to finish up and make the big plays. All right, moving forward, sticking with the defense, figure out end it with our strength. This Jets defensive line, first the Cowboys offensive line. For any of you that are big into the trenches, I think this is going to be one of those games where you know you'll absolutely love the situation. Jets come in with that one of those top ranked defensive lines, with those rotating defensive linemen against the Cowboys offensive line, who not what it used to be. I mean, I know a few years back, the Cowboys offensive line was basically like a staple marker of what an offensive line should be. Now the Eagles have kind of taken over that world. But nonetheless, the Cowboys still have really really good offensive line. And this Jets defensive line is going to get a major test here. How are they going to handle applying pressure here? Are they going to try and go in with these quick pass rushers, try and get around the edges? I know Tyron Smith isn't nearly as good as he used to be, but still a strong guy on the outside. But I'd really like to see what this Jets defensive line can do. Applied a monster amount of pressure in that last game. Jermaine Johnson looked absolutely brilliant. Um, he's a guy that I don't think we talk about nearly as much as we should because I mean he's been talking about himself up throughout this entire offseason and week one was basically his I wouldn't call it a coming out party, but he was all over the field. He made plays everywhere. Even on that, there was a play I want to say it was in the fourth quarter where um, Josh Allen made like he was gonna run with the ball, and then he did like a little side flick to the running back. I think it was James Cook that made the catch, or I think it was I think it was Murray actually who made the catch and kind of made a move, and then Jermaine Johnson was able to get there and make the tackle. But I mean, making plays up field and then that sack on Josh Allen was just incredible. Josh Allen stepped up, and he just basically kind of just shifted over and was able to make the sack. And he's one of those players that again we talk about coming out of the draft. Kayvon was in a lot of people's minds a top pass rusher, but I just liked what I saw out of Jermaine Johnson. He started off in JUCO, went to Georgia, went over to Florida State, and I feel like every year kind of progressed a little bit, you know, higher up, whatever, until his Florida State year where he just blew up off the map. He has a lot of pass rush moves that he can win in a lot of different ways. Can win with his speed, win with his power. Um, and we saw his power and speed on display on that one sack against Buffalo. Just want to see that progress going a little bit further and see if this guy can take over games. This Jets defensive line needs someone like that. Oh, sorry about that. This Jets defensive line needs somebody like that. They haven't had someone like that in a long time. And with all these pass rushers they've been drafting over the years, over the last couple of years, definitely see you know why they like Jermaine Johnson, and his snap count, seems to have increased. I don't know if it's just a matter of him making more plays, but he's been more visible, I feel like, on film than, I would in his rookie year, and he knows it. He wasn't himself his rookie year, kind of a guy still learning, and I would have expected that. Like I said, if you watched him, going through, his college career, there was always, like, that kind of, like, progression of him. Like, you saw a natural progression out of him. Wouldn't start great, and he was always a good player, obviously. But you kind of saw him like constantly developing into a better player each year, and I think his rookie year was no different. Was he one of our top rookies? No, but that doesn't. I mean, that's saying a lot because we had Sauce, we had Garrett Wilson, we had Brees Hall, and then we had some late round picks, and Mitchell and Clemens that produced for us pretty well. But what he did is he did his job. He was an edge setter. Did he come in with the sacks like you would expect out of a first round pick? No, those didn't come in year one. But here we are in the start of the 2023 season. He has his first under his belt, and I would really, he's a guy I want to watch this season because you know sky's the limit for this guy. He's fast. He's got a strong build, and just pure talent that I think is highly underrated. I don't know how he slipped to us as late as he did in the draft. There was a reason the Jets got aggressive and had him listed as one of their top 8 players. He's a fantastic athlete, and I think he's gonna, you know, do some good stuff for us this year. So overall, if I had to kind of make a prediction on this game, it's not going to be as positive of a prediction as I had in the first game. If you were listening to my show the first week, I thought the Jets were going to win that game by 2 touchdowns was kind of my target. I think if the Jets are going to win this game, it's got to be a tight, low scoring game. It's got to be, um, you know, gotta kinda continue that progress on this defense of holding teams to under 20 points. I know that's saying a lot with this Dallas defense, but, you kinda look at the situation we have at quarterback. Can Zach get us to 20 points against this defense that shut out the Giants last week? Um, I'm not so sure if that's possible, but I will kind of put it as I think this game ends with a score of 17-14. Then the Jets can pull out the victory, and I'm going with the positivity here. I'm not gonna call out the Jets for losing. They are too talented of a team. If everything falls right, they can win this game. It's just a lot of things do need to fall right in order for that to be possible. So I'm going to say the Jets win this game by a score of 17-14. I think it's going to come down to Garrett Wilson making some plays for this offense. Didn't do much in the last game, 35 yards, but that amazing catch for a touchdown. And I think he had 3 of his catches on one drive. That I thi oh, no, it was 2 catches on that drive. There was the 3rd down play and then, the 2nd down touchdown, reception. The Jets need to get him more involved, and again, I understand the deficiencies at quarterback and the fact this coaching staff didn't really wanna test him too much with throwing the ball downfield, but, Garrett Wilson is a player that if you get that ball in his hands, we've seen what he can do with it. He can make one guy miss and just go berserk with his freakish moves. Get this guy the ball. Really, I mean, with the way that this defense plays, it's really all it's gonna take is a couple of big plays, get into field goal range if you can, get Brees Hall the ball, run the football, Dalvin Cook, Brees Hall, um, as much as possible. But yeah, I think that we're unfortunately just a little limited. As positive as I want to be, it's going to take baby steps. Zach isn't going to turn around this week and throw for 400 yards. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I've been wrong before, but and I bet if you take that bet in Vegas, you're donating some money. But it's going to take a lot for this team to win games with Zach at quarterback, as it did last year. I mean, there was nothing easy about winning games when Zach was quarterback. Yeah, we did blow out the Packers in that game, but a lot of games throughout that season. The Denver game was a very close one, um, and that's the kind of game I look at as far as what's it going to take for the Jets to win this game. Zach didn't do anything fantastic in that game. There was an interception return for touchdown. There was a punt block, or sorry, field goal block for a touchdown. So um, it was all defense related. It was all special teams related. That's who won the game for them. So if the Jets are going to win this game, it's going to come down to this defense continuing that progress, trying to set that standard of we can be the '85 Bears, we can be the Legion of Boom, or we can be the 2023 Jets. An elite defense that's going to win games for a team that's a little bit incapable at quarterback. Going to post another video about obviously some other situations we've been hearing about. Just a couple names floating around about the quarterback position. But um, again, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'm still trying to grow this channel as much as possible. I've posted a few videos, um, and I appreciate all your support. Thank you, and let's go Jets.